We've all seen a number of major corporate scandals triggering widespread public skepticism and shock among other behaviors towards the executives who run them. Such tend to range from inflating profits, obstruction of justice, manipulation of the market, etc. In most business setups, it would appear when a behavior has a direct identifiable price, it's much easier to motivate corporate behavior. However, should corporate managers consider moral choices, or should their focus be based on profit and loss? In a world of ever-increasing complexity and interdependency, how does one go about determining what conduct is or is not ethical? With that in mind, I'm Manuel, and in this lesson, we look at ethical theories in relation to law. Some prominent ethical theories which try to answer the question what is right and wrong include: number 1, rights theory. This is based on the view that certain human rights are fundamental and should be observed. There are two primary categories of rights theory, the first one being Kantianism and the second one, the modern rights theory. Kantianism is based on the working of Immanuel Kant, who was a strict deontologist. He viewed humans as moral actors free to make choices. According to this philosopher, morality of a given action was determined by applying the categorical imperative. That is, judge an action by applying it universally. For instance, if you are to steal, then the question is, are you willing to let everyone else steal freely? Since this threatens your future security, then you may conclude that stealing is wrong. One major problem with Kantianism is that it imposes duties to be absolute. This implies that lying or killing, for instance, would be perceived to be unethical. Modern theorists believe that there may be circumstances when an action like lying and killing could be morally acceptable, for instance, self-defense. One particular theory believes that you should abide by a moral rule unless a more important rule conflicts with it. That is, our moral compulsion is not to compromise a person's right unless a greater right takes priority over it. Due to this moral relativism, modern rights theorists have a choice to make. They must determine what fundamental rights are and how they are ranked in importance. Most courts tend to use this approach. Number 2, justice theory. This is derived from the works of John Rawls, that is in his book A Theory of Justice, which argued for distribution of society's resources. Rawls argues that self-interested rational persons beyond the veil of ignorance would choose two general principles of justice to structure society in the real world. There is 1, the principle of equal liability. Each person has equal right to basic rights and liberties. And number 2, difference principle, which states that social inequities are only acceptable if they cannot be eliminated without making the worst off class even worse off. Consider a company that has two choices in terms of production, that is, produce locally or outsource. Based on this theory, the company can choose to outsource, assuming that the workers in the other country are badly off than the local workers. And the third one is utilitarianism. This theory is derived from the working of Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. Under utilitarianism, an ethical decision is one that maximizes utility for society as a whole. Thus, in our individual decision, we should always calculate their cost and benefits for every member of society. An action is ethical only if the benefits to the society outweighs their cost. This means that at times decision makers have to sacrifice their own interest if doing so gives greater benefit to society. And the last one is profit maximization. This is a teleological theory that is based on laissez-faire theory of capitalism, championed by Adam Smith. It proposes that managers should maximize a business's long-run profits within the limits of law. Unlike utilitarianism, in profit maximization, managers are focused solely on those decisions resulting into more profits for the organization. Critics view this to be entirely untrue, since in the quest for more profit, other issues such as employee welfare could be ignored. So that concludes our session on figuring out what law is. If you haven't watched the first part of this video, please do so. See you in the next lesson.